I thank you if you are joining us on Zoom. We also know that we're live streaming this and also recording, you know what I mean? So we can make sure that we spread this around. We know it's a Sunday. We know, in times and spaces, that's not everyone a space to gather, but with the beauty of technology, we can make this and get it around the folks so folks can continue to do teach-ins, discussions, call to actions in honor of what calls us into being today. Um, Happy birthday, Mumia Abu Jamal. So take a couple minutes, um, get a chance, stretch, breathe a little bit. Um, if you haven't taken your selfie already from Mumia, it's a great opportunity to do so. If you go to Bring Mumia Home on Twitter or Instagram, you can see the details and the calls that are being made about how to support and bring visibility to the campaign today. So thank you all for joining us. We'll get started in a minute. Just thank you all for joining us. We'll get started. Let's say like 12:04, 12:05. If you haven't, share it. Tell people where you are. Tell them to hit the link. We'll try to just keep this thing building. And I'm gonna try to finish a tweet. Tell people to come join us before we start. All right, bet. So we have an amazing opening video to start for us. Um, okay, well, it seems like that person might need to go. A couple people might need to go. We'll figure that one out. But in terms of starting the opportunity today, we're going to begin with an amazing video which features commentary from Mumia himself that came through Prison Radio in early January. So we're going to go ahead and get that started and get our, going ons for the day while we're here. So let me go ahead and get that started.
A New Freedom Now movement. The great Caribbean revolutionary, Frantz Fanon, wrote in his now classic work, The Wretched of the Earth, the following call to action. Each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it in relative opacity. That mission is now before us. What mission? To free prisoners of the empire. Not just myself, but others, some of whom we all know, some of whom we know not. People like Jamil Abdullah Alamin, Mondo Ed Poindexter Langa, Sundiata Akoli, Leonard Peltier, Dr. Mutulu Shakur, Julian Assange, Sanachli, Reverend Joy Powell, and Daniel Hale. They were anti-racist and anti-imperialist prisoners of the empire. Each and all of us would embrace that now famous first point of the Black Panther Party's 10-point program, written by two young college students, October 1966. Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale wrote, "We want freedom. We want freedom." When they wrote those words, they echoed the hearts of millions. Today, now, over 50 years after these words were written, they still possess power and resonance. We want freedom. Let these words energize new movements today and enrich our living histories by reconnecting with the freedom struggles of our youth. Many of us are elders, yet we rejoice in the freedom movements emerging anew today as a result of the torture and murder of George Floyd. For true struggles endure from generation to generation. This call comes as mass incarceration has metastasized into a system that has bled state budgets dry and has resulted in the caging of the elderly, and up till recently, the juvenile population. It has also resulted in unbridled cruelty, like women giving birth in shackles and chains, people being held in solitary confinement for decades. Surprisingly, prisons have become worse over time, not better, and bigger than we could even have imagined. We, therefore, need more prison support movements, not less. And prison abolition has to now be on the table. We want freedom. We want freedom. We want freedom. So say we all. Thank you, NUMSA. Thank you, Black Panther Party Commemoration Committee. Thank you, Labor Action Committee. Thank you all. In love and not fear, this is Mumia Abu Jamal. These commentaries are recorded by Prison Radio.
So, thankful and grateful for the work of Mumia, for those words that are helping us launch. And today, April 24th, is Mumia Abu Jamal's 68th birthday. In this event that you are attending, Free Mumia and All Political Prisoners, the All Campus Teach-In and Call to Action, is just one event within a series of international celebrations that are lifting up the legacy of Mumia, that continues to call for his freedom, that really inspires us all to find our role in the participatory freedom work, to bring our loved ones home, and to stand on truth and stand for justice. So I'm really excited to be with you all today. And I don't know if I did my own introduction, but I'm Chris. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a part of the Cops Off Campus Coalition, a member, organizer with Police Free Penn, which is a abolitionist assembly affiliated and beyond the University of Pennsylvania. in Philadelphia, or as the Lenape call it, Occupy Lenapehoking. And I just want to give a short sort of overstanding of the Cops Off Campus Coalition, right? And just reading this from the website. The Cops Off Campus Coalition is a coalition of coalitions building coast to coast across Turtle Island, otherwise known as North America. We are a network of local, regional, and transnational coalitions and collectives of students, educators, other workers, and all other community members impacted by police and policing at all levels of education. K to 12, universities, vocational and professional schools, colleges, seminaries. We are guided by the transformative worldview of abolition. We work within our communities and collectively to forward urgent alternatives to policing that will build a future university beyond punishment and violence. So if you Google more about the Cops Off Campus Coalition, you can find out more about what's happening, how this event serves as just one instance within a transnational abolition spring, and really, trying to jumpstart, this becoming generation of abolitionists. And we also have some veterans within our midst. So I'm really excited to be with you all. So in terms of our flow for today, we recognizing just how much activity was going to be happening for Mia's birthday, we worked with the leaders of Love Not Fear to record a teaching that talks about their work, the campaign of Love Not Fear, the contributions of Mumia Abu-Jamal in the work of freeing political prisoners. So we'll begin with that video, which is about 40 minutes. And then after that, we have some amazing guests with us who will serve as respondents and talk about, their own work and how that fits in. And we're also grateful to have on Jamal Jr., Mumia Abu-Jamal's grandson, who can also help us move from the teaching into a direct call into how we can all continue to be involved, continue to be a co-conspirator to bring Mumia Abu-Jamal home, so that his next birthday is with us here. We're working towards that moment. So without anything else being said, I'm gonna go ahead and start the teaching video. I'm gonna scroll in just a little bit past the little introductions, and then we're just gonna go ahead and watch. So please stay with us, listen in the background, and then, as we come back to the respondents, we're also gonna have space for just a little bit of Q&A as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this video started. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, evening, whatever time it is on the clock of the world where you at.
So I just want to say thank you for joining us this evening. And I want to open space for just the introduction. So you could tell us just a little bit about who you are, a little bit about, where you're from, and like, how did you, first get involved in organizing to free Mumia?
Should I start? I guess I'll start. So my name is Yane Indigo. I am in the part of the Lenapehoking territory that is known as Philadelphia. That's the colonizing name. And so, the work that I do, I'm a liberator, a freedom fighter, a freedom builder, and I work with and have worked with a number of organizations. I either am or currently or have worked with the Black Alliance for Peace, Black Lives Matter Philly, the Black Philly Radical Collective, Philadelphia Housing Action, Ubuntu Freedom, and others. I also work on with the Committee to Free Kamal Siddiqui, who is another U.S. held political prisoner, and am working in collaboration with other campaigns to free political prisoners. If you're in Philadelphia, you know Mumia. Certainly if you're an organizer in Philadelphia, you know Mumia. And I was introduced to Mumia many, many years ago. I can think of, signs that I had from being at Actions for Mumia that I had from years, 20 years ago. So I've been involved and became more and more closely involved as I began to find the organizing community. So I've always believed that Mumia should be free, should be released. And I actually, years ago, also met someone who was at the scene at on the day in question that observed what happened and firsthand, saw that Mumia did not kill that officer. He, a man who stepped forward to the police to try to talk about what he had seen, and who was harassed and intimidated by the police till he closed his business and ran from Philadelphia. And I met him down in North Carolina. He was not comfortable even returning to the city. That man is now passed, but he was able to firsthand communicate to me that he knew, because he had observed the actual shooting of the officer Faulkner. So he knew firsthand that Mumia had not done that. So that was something that always stuck with me and really compelled me to want to fight and to understand how an innocent man could be held in prison and prevented from being able to obtain his freedom. And and as we will talk about later, as I went through and learned more and more about the situation, I began to be even more clear about how, without actual advocacy from people who are out here on the streets, with this degree of freedom in this unfree society, that there would not be freedom found for an individual like Mumia. And so I was committed to fighting that fight and keeping him alive and getting him free.
All right. My name is Jamal Jr. Mumia, so terrible. Mumia Abu Jamal is my grandfather, and I'm a third generation Jamal, and I don't think I have to kind of really go into what started me into this campaign for my grandfather, because I inherited it, and that's just how it is. And there became a point where I understood and I knew that my grandfather's freedom needed to be an objective for everything that had Mumia's name on it, right? And the reason why I'm here is to not only make sure that people are they're connected to Mumia, right, through his bloodline leading the campaign, but they are they're understanding that that this fight isn't over, right? My children, right, his great grandchildren are realizing the impact of being without their great grandfather, because of racist Philadelphia, because of racist Frank Rizzo, and just because of the racist Fraternal Order of Police, right? When we think of Mumia Abu Jamal, a lot of people think of his writings, his commentaries, his support for almost every abolitionist movement you can think of, right? Mumia, in many ways, is the voice of abolition for our generation, right? In many ways, Mumia is the tutor to whoever you look to when you think of abolition, right? But Mumia is behind bars still to this day because of not only prosecutorial misconduct, but he's behind bars because of where we are, Philadelphia, right? Philadelphia has an old way of doing justice, right? And in many ways, I call it North Mississippi, right? Pennsylvania is North Mississippi. They're going to do whatever they want to do. And the reason why I'm here is because it's my prerogative to rally the people in support of Mumia Abu-Jamal, mostly because his support dwindled a bit post death row, right? There was a point where he was on death row. There was a point where he wasn't on death row. And when he wasn't on death row, everyone raised their fist as victors, right? My grandfather actually was on the row for almost 10 years after he was, removed from death row itself, right? Which means he lived on the row, when his life wasn't threatened by capital punishment, right? My grandfather's a great dude. He's a nice guy. He was a regular working dude, but the only thing that's different about Mumia Abu-Jamal is Mumia Abu-Jamal will get in the face of anybody, to tell the truth. Mumia Abu-Jamal was a supporter of, MOVE in a time where the media and the police, right, didn't want any Black liberation movement to thrive, right? Mumia Abu-Jamal was, pushing papers for the Panthers and information for the Panthers, since he was 15, and he tells me that was old. Like he was the old rookie with the Panthers, and the only thing that I have to gain from this, fight for my grandfather is his freedom, right? Because remember, I have children who they don't have a great granddad, their great granddad is behind bars. Their great granddad can't touch them in plain clothes, right? Their great granddad can't go for a run in the park. And, it's something that he should be able to do, right? But we have to think critically, we have to think strategically, and we also have to think about what do we want, right? Like do we want to push forward towards whatever new world we're looking for, and leave people behind, right? The Black liberation fighters, right, who was, out here, fighting the fight, when it wasn't, an Instagram and it wasn't trendy and you couldn't put a hashtag, right? Those people are still behind bars, and it's my goal to free my grandfather. And it's my vision to do that by rallying the people to scream in unison, free Mumia.
So my name is Brenda. I'm a 5th year PhD student here at UC Santa Cruz. As far as, what kind of got me involved initially, it's hard to be a student and have a revolutionary mindset and not hear about Mumia, or at least come across, some of his writings. And I know that's, education is something he advocates often in his writings and his recordings, right? And also how the system tries to take that away from, especially from Black folks, from people of color, right? So for me, being in this academic sphere, being daughter of immigrants, I'm descendant of Zoque Mexica peoples in Mexico, and, being a single mother up until I met this guy, it's really important to, use education for something, not just for, I need this degree, right? And so I see that revolutionary struggle and the kind of fervor to ignite that and keep that going. I see that a lot in students. And, being a person who tries to organize out here in the Bay, well, Santa Cruz is not the Bay, but, being Bay adjacent and seeing how these kind of realms of organizing intersect. I think is really important, right? And that's why like Cops Off Campus Coalition, right? All these fears, they touch each other, and that's where we can find those intersections and be more powerful together. And so that's what I'm hoping to bring to to the struggle to free Mumia.
Beautiful. And it's y'all, I don't know if y'all see behind y'all, you got like the setting sun, like just right behind y'all. It's just a beautiful image. So I just want to, thank you all for sharing just a little bit of that history. And we recognize that, we're coming up, when this is going to be played, will be Mumia Abu-Jamal's 68th birthday. And the call this year, the theme this is love, not fear. And I wanted to spend some time and just ask you about like what does that mean as the foundation of the campaign? What love, not fear? What does that stand for, and how should that inspire us as abolitionists and as just everyday folks, right? You spoke about just like building relationships and reconnecting with family. Love, not fear. Tell us a little bit about what that means and how you all are operationalizing that in your work and organizing.
Well, when we think about, and my grandfather talks about this a lot, when we think about love, love is the most powerful thing in the universe, right? Love transcends like time, right? Situation, right? Love is very, very powerful. It's not a weakness, right? And the full mantra is embrace love and challenge fear, right? So love, not fear. And the idea is that we're going to use this power, right, that love has, right? Love for each other's, love for the movements, love for my grandfather, Mumia, right? And we're going to challenge the fear that people have supporting Mumia publicly, right? We're going to challenge the fear of the Fraternal Order of Police, right? We're going to challenge the fear of the courts, right? We're going to challenge the fear of the prisons, right? And there's a lot of fear, resonating around my grandfather, right? He doesn't have any fears, right? And I believe in his situation, he doesn't have the luxury, of fear, right? Like what he has the most of is love and hope, right? So we're challenging these institutions that are designed to really subjugate the people, right? Subjugate support for Mumia Abu-Jamal, right? A lot of people fear even saying his name, right? They don't want a publicist to get at him. They don't want a cop to knock on their door. And we're going to use the universal love that we all have, for not only for revolution, but for my grandfather and the movements to power and really motivate people to fight to free Mumia Abu-Jamal.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that. And I know, Yane, in the earlier conversation, you spoke about just how important that message is for today, not solely just in the campaign to free Mumia Abu-Jamal, but in terms of what we all need to be thinking about in terms of people who are called or respond to the call abolition. That love, not fear is incredibly important for us. I wonder if you could speak to that for just a moment.
Yeah, for sure. So, first, one of the things that we're seeking to do and that we have to do is one of the things we talk about and we've talked about sometimes in the campaign is shifting the consciousness, right? And so love, as Jamal was saying, one of the powers of love is transformation. And, you can see it, it's embodied in that very iconic archetypal image of the mother who can lift a car, because of the love of her child, right? Love can Love can take a person and transform their physical body and and transform them into a power lifter, right? In that way, somebody who wouldn't be able to make the car shake could lift it, because of that immense love that has them overcome that fear in that moment. And we live right now in a society that is punitive and that is driven by fear. There's no seeking to keep order through anything other than fear. The fear of police, the fear of punishment, right? And there are a lot of other ways to maintain order. We can admire and elevate and appreciate people, and we can develop order in that way. But we have a fear-based punitive society, and that it embeds itself into the reality of the people who are subject to that society. And I observed that really when I went to Cuba, and I was able to see a major difference in how the Cuban people operated just on the day-to-day in comparison to how people operate on a day-to-day here. That our society, that the differences I perceive in how their society runs, where they will show up even for a country like the US that is sanctioning people and sanctioning their people, and they would show up, they would send their doctors to New York, right, after Hurricane Sandy to help and they do that while they're starving, right? Because that's and a government that does that, it creates people who are giving and compassionate. And here we've been subject to a government that's extractive, that's violent, that engages in war, both in the abroad as well as in the US, and particularly against Black and Brown people. And so we all are experiencing that in a range of ways, and we deal with the violence that the police bring into our communities. That's why we were marching in the streets. That's why people lit police stations on fire, in 2020, and police cars on fire in 2020. We were responding to and have been tired of all of the violence that we experience and that we have been subject to inside of our communities from this system. And it's time for us to shift our consciousness, and because it also it invades our personal communities and how we interact, our interpersonal interactive communities. We need to shift from that to one that is love-based, and which our love is what drives us to fight for each other, not against each other. And we need to remember those who already have been doing that. So when you look at someone like Mumia is, Mumia is a veteran Black Panther, as Jamal was describing, who was beaten by the police, and because of that experience was inspired to join the cause to fight against that kind of injustice, and then continue to do that all the way up until he was in prison, and then continues to do that now. And so he does that even from prison, even behind bars. He seeks to inspire the people. He seeks to encourage the people with his voice. He knows he's got a magical voice. So he's always lending his voice to the various campaigns and the various issues that are happening. He consumes the information about what's going on. He could easily just sit in and just focus on himself, but he spends his time understanding what's going on in the larger world, and so that we can have a better analysis, and he can contribute to our analysis of what's happening through his many books as well as through his interviews and discussions. And so we have a responsibility to him, and we have a responsibility in connection to him, to our larger community, to understand how all of these fights are the same one fight. We're all fighting against the same one racist and violent system. And so the campaign that's why it's not simply called, it's not just named after Mumia, because Mumia represents more than himself. Every win that he has gotten, he has sought to make sure that others who are also suffering from the injustice of mass incarceration are also benefiting from those wins, right? And so, he represents, we're not representing Mumia if we're only focusing on Mumia. So this campaign, it really has to embody, in order to embody Mumia's principles, it has to embody the reality of all of our fights. And so the fight against the fight that I talked about Walter Wallace Jr., which in Philadelphia is a case that happened just recently in 2020, and so many of us and so many around the world were aware of and have been aware of. And in that situation, the police saw a Black man and they did not see his humanity. They did not have any compassion, and they shot him down and they murdered him. And they did the same thing to Mumia. They shot Mumia, they beat Mumia. Now he survived in spite of their intentions. And then they have continued to seek to kill him since he's been in prison, when he was on death row. And then when the movement of the people were able to help him to come off of death row, they have continued to seek to kill him through medical neglect, and they sought to kill his spirit. And it is the will of the people that has kept him alive. Now we must bring him out from behind those bars and bring him into freedom. And at the same time, we have to recognize that just like those parallels between Mumia and what Mumia has suffered and continues to suffer, and what the family of Walter Wallace continues to suffer, and our communities in general are suffering, is the violence of a racist, unjust, illegitimate system. And that we ourselves, we the people, we can engage and activate with justice. We can engage and activate with peace. We can engage and activate with love. And that's what we have to do. We have to overcome the fear that the system has embedded in us, fear of each other, fear of it, fear of failure, fear of everything that it embeds in us. And we have to transform that and transform ourselves and transform the world with love.
Thank you. Thank you. And you spoke about just how interconnected it was, and that, and to be, even like literal, bringing Mumia into freedom is also bringing ourselves into freedom, right? And we have to recognize the opportunity that is in front of us to do that. And as we sort of like come to a close with this discussion, I'm gonna come back to Brenda, who spoke about, your role on campus. And I want to think about, the opportunity that is in front of us, and what does it mean to move in love and not fear, in our studies, in our campus organizing, in our relationships, and growing greater solidarity. So I want to begin with you in terms of like, how do we move within that, and what are the opportunities in front of us to get involved, to act, to study, to build?
Yeah, and just kind of going off of what Yane said, I think rooted in that transformation is love, right? And another role that I have on campus at UC Santa Cruz is I work with underground scholars, and so we are formerly incarcerated and system impacted students, and we help other formerly incarcerated, in Mumia's case, currently incarcerated students, right? Because he is a student here. But I think that love and transformation part for me is what carries me as an abolitionist, especially in spaces on campus. Anyone without privilege has probably experienced how the academic institution can mimic, the wider system and institutionalize us just on a campus, right, where we're supposed to be learning. And so I think with how we carry ourselves as students, we have to remember we're not in a vacuum of academic, everything, right? Everything we're doing is connecting to the real world, because it is the real world. And so, for example, I do archaeology. I'm very much about challenging, possibly abolishing archaeology, right? Because it has settler colonial roots, and I'm not okay with perpetuating that in any discipline. And so I think as researchers and scholars, and again, just pulling from what I've learned from Mumia as a scholar already, he don't need that PhD to be a scholar, he's gonna get it. But, just taking from what I've learned, it's really, it's essential to incorporate these not just abolitionist concepts, but to be guided by how does my position as a scholar, allow me, because it is a privilege, right? We get access to not just JSTOR, but we get access to places not everybody can have access to. And so how can we put that knowledge out there to help to be revolutionaries and to help the next revolutionary generations to continue to make that change while being educated, but while not being completely susceptible to what the academic institution can do, which unfortunately can sometimes be blinding, right? So be revolutionary, challenge your classes, challenge your professors, but also band together as students, because the power really is amongst the students. And I always bring up the example of Tlatelolco, which my father told me about in Mexico, where the Mexico government just opened fire on a bunch of students at a protest. And it was in the 80s, I believe. And my dad was supposed to be there. But I always think about that as, when I heard that story as a little girl, I was like, students, and it didn't hit me until now that I'm older. There is so much power, especially when someone is like, you're aware of what real life is like, and you bring that experience with the knowledge of education, and you're using that to fight all the systems and to further abolition. And I think Jamal also has some important kind of calls to action, but I don't want to get ahead of myself, but specifically for students, right?
No, I can pass it to Yane.
I just want to appreciate this moment. I want to appreciate us coming together to speak about this, and I want to appreciate all the people who are watching this and who are going to be thinking about what we've been talking about and who are interested in understanding the fight to free Mumia and to free all U.S. held political prisoners and to free all political prisoners in the world, to free all oppressed people from the shackles of oppression and repression and violence that comes through these racist, white supremacist, imperialist systems that are spreading across the planet. Want to recognize that we are at war, and we have to understand that, and we have to activate and engage with that understanding. Want to appreciate Jamal. When you have people that the families of political prisoners are people who did not necessarily make a choice. They didn't get the opportunity to make a choice, right, as to whether or not they wanted to be a revolutionary family or part of a revolutionary movement, even though someone like myself believes all of us have to be, and on some level we all are, whether we choose it or not. But someone like Jamal his grandfather was taken from him and has been separated from him for his whole life, and now for the entire life so far of his children. And that's a sacrifice that is imposed on him by this system and the need to have a radical revolutionary movement. And he need not do anything else, because that's the ultimate sacrifice already that he's making for Mumia. And he is not only involved in this fight, but is a leader in this fight. And, and as represented by his presence here, with all that comes with that, which is a major burden. I think that people should understand that it's really not a light thing or a small thing to have to do this work of fighting for your family member, your father or your grandfather or your spouse who has been stolen by the state and taken in this way. So I just want to appreciate that. And, and I want to encourage people to constantly wrap Jamal and the family in love and prayers and light, and to give energy to them, and for us to understand what that means and what that the weight that is being buried by that. And I also want to speak to the fact that there are many political prisoners, and we need to understand that all of them have to be fought for. All of them are a U.S. held political prisoner is such because not simply, it's never because of whatever it is that they're charged with. Because I've yet to see where a person who is in prison is charged because of their political beliefs, but that is why they're incarcerated. And so they're incarcerated because they're standing up for us, because they stood up for us before we were even born. They stood up for us, they fought for us, they put their lives in the line, they faced the system head on and were captured in the process of doing that. They are our heroes. They are our superheroes. And none of us can call ourselves revolutionaries at all if we are not fighting for those who actually did that work and got captured. And what kind of movement can we build if we don't let each other know that if the system, if we're fighting the system and the system captures us, that we will not forget you, but we will fight to bring you home. And so it's imperative that we are all involved in the fight for political prisoners, that we more deeply understand that and do that work. As it relates to the fight for Mumia and this campaign, if we have the website, which is Love Not Fear. Fear is spelled P-H-E-A-R, and it's spelled that way as a nod to Philadelphia, right? So, which is also spelled P-H-I-L, and, we'll go on Philly town. So Love Not Fear, if you go to lovenotfear.com, you go to get involved, there's a form right there that you can complete that enables you to let us know that you're interested and to get us your information. And then there are a range of ways that you can get involved. We have committees that meet regularly, and you can come and be involved in the campaign directly. We would love to have you. So that's one way that you can get involved. You can get involved even just with your social media, just posting information. And if you don't know what to post, if you watch our social media, then you can be able to find information that you can repost there. And you can also go to freemumia.com, where there's information explicitly about Mumia, because again, the Love Not Fear campaign, while we're fighting for Mumia, we're also, it's broader. There's also direct, more specific information about Mumia that you can find at freemumia.com. And you can go and find on the Free Mumia and Mobilization for Mumia social media handles. You can go there to also get information explicitly about Mumia and be posting that. You can go and you can learn more. So Mumia has a number of books. I can show you a couple. I'll just show you here. This is just one. You can go and pick up Mumia's books and learn through that. You can go and hear his voice and listen to different of his commentaries. And you look at, if you go on YouTube, there's there's a video that Colin Kaepernick put out there that speaks to what speaks to the case and the call to free Mumia and the importance of that. So these are just a few ways, but as it relates to getting involved in the campaign, which is really key for us, we really need your support. You can just go to lovenotfear.com and you can /get-involved, or if you just go to lovenotfear.com, you can click on the menu, get involved and complete that form. But I want to just let Jamal just gives the final word here, and appreciate him, appreciate his leadership, appreciate his sacrifice, and anyone who's listening, let you have the benefit of hearing his words as the close of this video.
Thank you, Yane. Thank you, Chris, for the opportunity. Thank you, Brenda, for coming and really adding your view of a current scholar, and abolitionist. So right now, I'm in my mid-30s, right? And I was, a lot of y'all age, when I had the opportunity to really dive into it, right? And I said something, I'm pretty sure I said it on TV. I can probably look it up. And these words kind of haunt me to this day, right? And I said, we don't need to get involved because the elders have it, right? Which is, a part of the miseducation of the population, right? And which is really coming down to the miseducation of you guys, right now, right? Like we know what college is, right? Like college is a trap and it's also a gift, right? To get educated is, a benefit that you guys are using, but you're also getting trapped in debt, right? And a lot of these courses and a lot of things that's going on, you're getting miseducated and really learning how to assimilate into capitalism, right? Rather than, face capitalism head on. So it's really easy, especially if you haven't been informed about Black liberation movements and stuff. It's really easy to say, "Oh, that's not my fight," right? But these are the words of Huey P. Newton, right? That came down the chain of command in the Black Panther Party. And when my grandfather heard his captain say these words, my grandfather said, "What?" Right? And Huey P. Newton said, "Everything is political. Every single thing is political," right? Although these are political prisoners because they fought in liberation movements, right? And they kind of powered and like fought against the system, right? All prisoners are political at this point, right? At this stage in capitalism, everything is political, right? Even if you decide like, yeah, I don't want to do this, that's political, right? Like we have to think about like the moral responsibility to get involved, right? History. Well, Winston Churchill said, some along the lines where history will smile upon me for, because I shall write it. Right. History is written by the victors. Right. There's reasons why you don't know the story of Mumia Abu-Jamal. There's reason that a lot of people didn't know the story of Tulsa, didn't know the story of MOVE. Right. They didn't know the story of Black insurgencies. Right. Because it's written by the perceived victors. Right. So that's something you need to think about. Right. Like not non-participation only prolongs defeat, right? You must get involved. Again, it's morally irresponsible not to get involved into a fight, right? Now, whether it's this fight or another fight that you believe in, like understand that the way capitalism works, or the way a lot of this stuff works, is for you not to, is when you think that, oh, these problems are too big, or, that despondency kicks in, right? When you think that you can't add something to a struggle, oh, yes, you can. And it's designed to make you feel like you can't, right? So I want to leave you guys with this idea, right? The youth inherit these movements. The youth will inherit the revolution. Right? Whether they do it willingly or unwillingly, they will inherit. You guys will inherit it, right? And I want to thank everybody who's listening. I want to thank everybody who participated. This is obviously it's very, very personal to me, right? But if you listen to any of my words, it should be personal to you as well. Thank you, people.
Thank you. And this is such a powerful way to open us up into a discussion. And I'm just excited for you all and inviting us into the struggle with you. And we look for you in the whirlwind, as they say. And we're excited to continue to move in solidarity with you all as we all move forward. And I'll start the call end the call the way I started it. Free Mumia and free them all. Thank you.
Them all.
Free 'em all.
When we fight, we win.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's my first time watching it back, and so many gems. I got my little notebook and my paper. So much to be said, and also, I tried to say, so I'm a Philly person, and we mentioned a lot of Philly stuff. So, as we move to the Q&A, if there's like points of clarity, I don't know, we got a couple of respondents too. If there's anything that's out there, we can certainly sort of try to speak to those things and a bit of the history. But now, as we sort of like move from, that recording into just like a live discussion, I'm grateful to have with us today someone that I've been following online and following their work and following their organizing for like the past year or so. There's a new Claudia Jones Club at Howard University, which is affiliated with the Claudia Jones School for Political Education, which is out of DC. Also, a deep and great connection and collaboration with the Youth Communist League. I am so grateful to have Kwame Appiah here with us today, the Claudia Jones Club at Howard University. I don't know if you just want to do like a quick introduction real quick, say who you are.
Sure, I'm so happy to be here today. My name is Kwame. I organize with the Claudia Jones Club at Howard University. I'm also part of the Youth Communist League. I'm in DC. I'm from Springfield, Massachusetts, but I'm currently in DC. I'm studying Afro-American Studies with a minor in sociology. I'm a freshman at Howard, and I'm so excited to talk to you all today and just discuss. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And then, gratefully we were able to have Jamal Jr. join us for a quick minute as well. Jamal, you there? All right, well, Jamal's on the call. He might have stepped away. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you were sharing. I know you were saying, I think this is the first time you watched it back too.
Yeah.
Well, we're so grateful to have.
I'm trying to figure out my orientation.
Got you.
Yeah, I think that's it. What's going on?
Yeah. Good. So we're grateful to have you here. We have about 15 minutes or so to just have some responses and really like take the words that we came through in that call, and even with you here, we can kind of think about what it means to move with that. So I first want to provide space for the Claudia Jones Club and Kwame to talk about just like how you responded to what you hear in the call, and a little bit about how you all organize at Howard and in DC, and how you make connections with fighting for political prisoners, participating in freedom campaigns, and just reaching outside of the campus bubble, if you will. So Kwame?
Of course. I think that I echo the sentiments that were expressed in the video, where the relationship between the dynamics that are occurring on college campuses are so interconnected with what's happening in the larger community, right? So that's the goal and the mission of the Claudia Jones Club. Whether it's a movement that organically spurred from our own college campus, if we're supporting other college campus movements, or if we're supporting the efforts of the working class people in DC or around the Shaw neighborhood or abroad, right? So I think that I witnessed that when we came to support the Blackburn protests that weren't principally organized by the Claudia Jones Club, but we supported them as the masses moved to call for better student housing and better student conditions at Howard last year, right? And what I saw was barring the Blackburn building that students were trying to occupy, where campus cops, right? Campus police, and a lot of students were surprised at that. They were like, these are the people that are supposed to protect us. Why are they barring us? Like, why are they stopping us from protesting? As if cops on campus are supposed to be on their side just because it's a college campus, right? You witnessed the movement that occurred at the peak of the Black Lives Matter movement, where all of this understanding and like this consciousness came about of like the role that cops play in perpetuating state violence and upholding the capitalist order. But on a college campus, you feel that that's not supposed to occur, right? So it's that contradiction that Claudia Jones, we try to address, and we try to provide that political education for the students, and then connect that to the broader community as well. I think that's a direct example that I would give. And then also supporting like the labor union, right? So like the labor union of faculty members on campus, right, for organizing and petitioning for higher salaries, better workers' benefits, right? Better contracts, right? Like that's interconnected with the experience of students and the experience of the community, right? Like these are the faculty members that are teaching us. Their conditions are important to us and reflect us as well. And then like literally with the nurses union and like the nurses strikes at Howard University Hospital, right? Just organizing for better conditions at the hospital as well. So reflecting different areas of the same struggle for sure.
Yeah, and what I love about what you just shared is you talked about many different strategies of how we rebuild our communities, right? That is, it's not that bringing our loved ones home. I'm looking at our call today that we're 3 Black folks here on this call, and we probably all have a relationship with someone who's been in prison or sentenced for something, and I think in terms of how we rebuild our communities and bring ourselves together is so important. And I want to go to Jamal with sort of like this, but one, just like your thoughts, like in terms of like, what you really came through in the calls, anything that, that you wanted to mention that wasn't there, but also what I love about just in our initial conversations, it was also about like, there's a fear around like naming that we're fighting for people to come home and like naming political prisoners and articulating that they struggle. And it's like, and for you, it's personal. It's like, it's family, right? And we have to think about it in that way, and that it should be like honored as such. So I would also want to just open up in terms of how can we think about the work of freeing political prisoners? Yes, it is radical. Yes, it is revolutionary, but it's also something that needs to be every day. So I would love to just invite you into the conversation and just share.
Hey, what's going on? So like the whole idea of everything that we're talking about, right, is we're talking about the right to live, right? That we're talking about the right to live comfortably without fear of oppression, right? The right to live in abundance, to your capability and interest, right? Like, and I think everybody's like really stuck in like the capitalism mindset, right? The whole William Lynch philosophy mindset, like we're at a point in time. I play a lot of chess, and it's a lot, right? A lot of people just feels like, it's checkmate anyway, right? So why care, right? We're running from checkmate. And that's and if you talk to any chess player, that's not a way to play chess, right? So as soon as you start running from checkmate, it's game over, right? But we're like in an advanced era, as we are in this technology era. And we still have like savage and socially like backwards tactics for enslavement work, right? And they're using that for like mass incarceration at this point. And eliminating, criminalizing, silencing, or disrupting not just leaders in Black resistance movements or any resistance movement, just anybody that they feel like they can't control, right? Because we got to think about that, right? Like, I'm going to be real with you guys. Your heroes, that you read and that you watched and stuff, and you say, yeah, man, yeah. A lot of them got price tags hanging out their asses. And let's be real about that, right? If any of you, right, I read the William Lynch when I was 8, I think, maybe 9, 8 or 9. Yeah, I was 8 or 9, right? And if you haven't read that, I definitely suggest that you read it, because it'll be so many like parables to what's happening right now, right? And we thinking about mass incarceration. It's personal for me because it's my grandfather, but everybody who's incarcerated, every single prisoner is political, right? Because now, right, it's not about imprisoning people because, they did some wrong. It's a lot of people making money off imprisonment, right? A lot of people making money off of people staying in prison. right? In my grandfather's case, I believe that's less the case and more so really criminalizing and keeping down like Black resistance perceived leaders or voices. But you got to think about fighting. What do you fight for, right? Well, why do you exist? Why are you here, right?
Mhm.
Are you here to make as much money as you can, right? Are you here to, bequeath your children and their children, a lifestyle, right, that you wish that you have for yourself, right? Um, both, in my view, both are wrong if we're not like trying to make sure that that's the same thing for everybody's children. If that makes any sense, right? It's a mission to keep everybody unorganized and definitely keep y'all disinterested, right? There's a lot of fear keeping people that are informed from fighting with us, right? So, like, what I'm asking, especially out of the strength of love of uh, my pops, my pop, right? I'm asking is for people to challenge that fear, right? You gotta notice it, you gotta challenge it, you gotta face it, and ask yourself, like, are you for real, right? Like, do you want others to experience everything that this world has to offer? Because it's real easy to feel like, man, I'm feeling real good right now, and I don't want to, rock a boat. It's real easy to do that, but we're asking people to not only rock the boat, but we're asking people to really, really put your money where your mouth is, right? And stand up, for what you believe in.
Thank you. And I in terms of standing up and getting informed. I'm gonna come back to you, Kwame, and the Claudia Jones Club, because I know y'all have a very a strong political education program, and I think it's important that we continue to create more spaces that are showing people, just as Jamal mentioned in the video, that the youth will inherit the struggle, right? We also inherit strategy, right? We also inherit tactics. We inherit relationships. And also, one of the things that really struck in the video for myself is also that I think in the way that we talk about a revolutionary struggle, we can sometimes go like, no, that's happening in the past, or that the Black Panther 10-point program is something that happened in the past, that is just a document from the 60s. But when we return to Mumia Abu-Jamal and we think about the Black Panther Party Commemoration Committee, like there are so many Black Panthers that are still alive, still in the struggle with us every day. And we have to think about like, what is our relationship to those folks? And I know with the work that you all do in DC with the Claudia Jones School and just the history of the Communist Party and the Mid-Atlantic region, y'all are really like a multi-generational force. So I would love to, hear you all in terms of like, what does the political education and action look like? And how are we bringing new generations of folks into it? And in particular, thinking about the work of, participatory freedom campaigns like this one to free Mumia Abu-Jamal.
Oh, absolutely. Like I completely agree with you. And then I think of the importance of having, right, like a structure in place that can be passed on from generation to generation, something visible, something tangible, right, that can be seen by community members to say, oh, like this is what's going on, like that can be put onto somebody else, right? Like that is super important. So I think from what I've been learning, right, being able to have the privilege to be in the DC area and be a part of that history currently, and like learn about that from like elders and current organizers, is that, right, the Black radical tradition and the Black freedom movement in the US and abroad is so intimately connected with Marxism and that lineage, right? So like that is the framework that the Claudia Jones School takes in their organizing and their structure, right? So we work closely with the parent organization, and then we disseminate onto different campuses in the DC region, right? So there's a Claudia Jones School at American University. There's currently one at Howard, and we're trying to get one at different schools around the area, right? So we have that parent school for funding, for leadership, for advice in that way. But at the end of the day, it's the clubs on campuses that are bringing these people together, are bringing these students together, that are analyzing the material conditions, the contradictions, the issues that the students are having, and are coming together weekly throughout the year to organize, to commune, and to be in solidarity, right? So with Howard University, our Claudia Jones Club, we had elections, right? So we had elections to vote in a chairperson, I'm a vice chair, a person who I am, right? We have a secretary, we have a treasurer, other people who are the leadership of the club and who are, you know, working hard to maintain that club. So like the broad club can come in, learn, and not feel as much of a commitment, right? Because everybody has varying levels of commitment, right? Everybody's in different places. They may not be full students. They may have a job that they work. So you can't expect everybody to hold the same level of commitment in the organizing movement, right? So we're completely aware of that. And our philosophy of democratic centralism is very principled to our organizing and to our club structure, right? So we have this this democracy, right? So it's communication between the general body and the central committee, right? And we have avenues for people to direct grievances or any suggestions or criticism that they may have to make the club more reflective of what they want to see, right? What they want to be studying. But then there's also that element of centralism, right? Where we have a central authority, right? It is grounded in the Claudia Jones School. It's grounded in this history of radical organizers in DC. It's grounded in the organizations that are already present in DC, right? So Claudia Jones, like we are always with Heal the Homies, like other organizations in DC, Code Pink, right? We have like events where we're all together because it's a movement of different organizations focusing on different specific issues, and we're in line with that. So with that structure in place, like we've been able to support other campus clubs and like I said, like different unions on campus, teachers unions, nurses unions, and take that into the community and have Google Forms, different like newsletters, social media, using all those communication elements to keep people intact. But then we also get together weekly and we read it, right? We study, we read literature, we read these revolutionaries that we look up to, and we analyze what they've done and what we need to continue to do. So I think like that's the structure that Claudia Jones has, and I think that like it's very integral to maintaining the movement for future generations, so that people aren't feeling like, okay, I took a class or this personal experience happened to me. I understand what's going on. I understand it's wrong, but I don't have the apparatus. I don't have the history behind me to like get involved, right? Like I don't want to just start from scratch every time something happens in like the mass, you know, political consciousness, right? Like you want something that you can enter and look into like in that party format. So yeah.
Yeah, I thank you for that. And what I love about that is, right, that that structure and building that structure is something that can be passed down. It works actively against the isolation that some people may feel on campus when they're bumping up against these systemic contradictions, and can sometimes feel like I'm the only one who's facing it. And that the visibility of the work that y'all do says that, no, we have a community, we're here. And you know, if something happens to one of us, we're going to stand in something, and it's for all of us. You know what I mean? So as we begin to come to a close, as we come to a close, I wanted, in terms of like that communication and getting the calls out there, Jamal Jr., it's like Love Not Fear is probably, you know, April 24th is Mia's birthday, but I know there's some other organizing coming up for July 3rd. I wonder if you could just talk about that real quick. We're going to try to, you know, bring it in the close in the next 2-3 minutes.
I got you. So on July 3rd, we're going to have 40 cities do a mass protest and call to action for my grandfather. The 40 cities is to commemorate the 40th year of his wrongful conviction. So if you wanted to get connected and organize for the 40 cities, you can go to lovenotfear.com. We have a link for 40 cities, and you can sign up on how you can support your city or how you can support a close by city. We also have committees that we have for the organizing, and the next steps. I think for you guys, if you wanted to participate in this freedom struggle to free all U.S. held political prisoners, is to reach out to us on lovenotfear.com, fill out the form, and we can get you connected to a committee.
Thank you, and we'll be sure to post that alongside this. I just want to thank both of you all. Jamal Jr. for making space today, and then Kwame's. I've been following your work online, but it's finally great to put it at least one face to the work, and look forward to continue to be in a community with you both for real. And as we come to a close, I definitely got to give a shout out to the Cops Off Campus Coalition, who really supported this platform to come into being. Jess, Haley, and shout out to our tech coordinator for the day, Jesse, really helping this space and this platform come together. I'm really excited to continue to build as we stretch and across HBCUs as well, and figuring out the sort of abolitionist front lines there, and making these connections and bringing more of these communities into a coalition. We recognize that when we share strategies and we share the collective power that we are all building, it makes the movement that much stronger. We want to apply that. And I'll end with Yane. And I got to give a shout out to Yane. Yane Indigo was part of the video. And also Brenda. Thank you, Brenda, for your contribution and the work that you do with the Underground Scholars Initiative. But Yane, so it was Yane's 50th birthday, just like yesterday or this week. So I got to give a shout out to Yane. And Yane said this, quote, that the will of the people has kept Mumia alive. And I will extend that as we come to a close and say that the will of the people will bring Mumia home. Thank you, everyone who's watching this, everyone who will watch this. Let's get organized, let's get connected, and let's go ahead and do our work. And just like Sunshine put into the chat, brick by brick, wall by wall, free Mumia, free them all. Thank you all. And, have a great